Better health, better care, lower cost. Everyone's talking about healthcare, but how much do you know? Better Health is brought to you in part by Sleep Better Northwest. Explore the healthcare system and listen to experts with your host, Sue Lani Madsen, here on Better Health.
Oh, welcome to Better Health, and my guest today is Jim Adcock. He is the owner of Southside Wellness and a licensed massage therapist. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Sue Lani. Thanks for inviting me on your show today.
Glad you could come on, and we'll talk a little bit about massage therapy, although we're going to head in from there into some other kinds of chronic pain management. But what have you found as a massage therapist with your pain patients?
Well, people come in with different kind of issues. Pain's you can label it kind of differently. There's two types of pain, acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain is where you maybe twist your ankle or your knee or you pull your back out. And those kind of pain issues resolve very quickly and very well with like massage therapy or physical therapy or other type of interventions. But when you look at chronic pain, that's kind of different. And a lot of therapists really struggle with treating chronic pain and adjusting chronic pain because it's kind of a whole different kind of animal. And I did a little search before our show, and I didn't realize that chronic pain in the United States alone is over $635 billion is spent on chronic pain.
Is that spent on trying to cope with it, or spent on lost time, lost work time?
I think it's just the amount of money that is spent trying to address chronic pain.
Trying to find relief.
Yeah, trying to find relief. And over $60 billion of lost production to companies and stuff with sick leave and missing work, things like that. So chronic pain is a big problem. It's actually been called the invisible disease in America and worldwide because people, there's a lot of people walking around with chronic pain. And it's really kind of an epidemic. And it can lead, trying to find solutions to it, it leads people into opioid abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism, trying to find a way to dull that pain.
Some overuse of pharmaceuticals plus some self-medication.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to think that, well, what in, 100 years ago, were people just tougher? Although if you look at the patent medicines, a lot of them were really heavily drug-laden. People were medicating chronic pain and have for centuries, really.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked a little bit was not just the cost, but like you started on what those types are. And, of course, massage therapy, you would see the soft tissue injuries, but the other types that are on there.
Yeah. Well, acute pain is pretty much the definition of that is it's 3 months or less of duration. You injure yourself, hurt yourself, and you get the appropriate treatment or the appropriate time that your body needs to rest. And your body does a really good job healing itself, and it's not a problem anymore. From my point of view as a massage therapist, acute pain is typically a soft tissue injury where you maybe have some muscle tearing, muscle pulling, maybe some tendon or ligament issues. And those all respond well to massage therapy. And acute pain can also be like a visceral issue if you have a sudden appendicitis attack or something like that. But pain does serve a very important signal in the body. It's the body's first line of defense of telling us that something's wrong. That either we've put our hand on a hot burner, we've hurt ourselves somehow, or that we need to get some mysterious pain, evaluated by a doctor. So, as a massage therapist, I can't diagnose what's wrong with a person. So it's really important for a person, if they have any pain at all, they need to get it evaluated, by the appropriate medical professional.
Yeah, I have a massage therapist who did manage to, because I tried to use massage therapy on a shoulder pain, and she touched my shoulders. Okay, so it's a rotator cuff injury. She was right. Took an MRI and that's not going to go. Where's that going? There we go. And so that was an acute pain that had to be repaired. and rehabilitated. But then the other is the chronic pain. People are that's the one that's causing all this money to be spent seeking relief, and you had longer than 3 months duration. And what else is characteristic of chronic pain?
Chronic pain tends to be very resistant to treatment. It's pretty often I'll have people come into my office that had chronic pain for 60, 40, 30, 20 years, or maybe even a year. And, they've done all sorts of different therapies. They've jumped around from different modalities, chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy, maybe even going to different therapists within that modality. And they don't get any relief, or they get relief for a week or two, but it always cycles back and it always comes back. And that's really frustrating for people because, they spend a lot of money, a lot of time trying to get resolve for that. And at some point, people a lot of times just give up because, they can't find any solutions to it.
And we have a lot of people, we're talking a lot in society now about the opiate and opioid crisis and that kind of pharmaceutical intervention. And I know this, the magazine I have open here had a long article in the Health and Home that Inlander put out this last month in November 2018, talking about some of the things that have been found out about the pharmaceutical approaches are maybe they're good for the acute pain phase, but for chronic pain they start to lose effectiveness. Okay. And I know one of the things that you have, what pushed you to take a look at alternative, some of the new and emerging therapies was what you found in your massage practice with folks who were still seeking help, and it wasn't something you could help them with. So where did you go looking for information?
Well, that's one of the problems as a therapist. Being there's such a definite difference between acute and chronic pain, a lot of times we treat both with the same techniques. And being chronic and acute pain are two totally different animals being caused by something different in the body. A lot of times those chronic pain people don't respond to the acute therapies. And how I came across studying chronic pain more was a therapist friend of mine in England who also does hypnotherapy and body work like I do. He told me about this class called Old Pain to Go. So I went on to Stephen Blake's Old Pain to Go website, and I started watching all these video testimonials of these people who had had chronic pain for years and years, and just a 60-minute session of Old Pain to Go, and their pain completely went away after years and years.
Well, I think that's a good cliffhanger point to leave for a short break, and we'll come back and find out more about how that works.
Okay, great.
All right.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Custom lighting in the kitchen. I'm into it.
To help you be safe, Washington state law requires you to call 811 2 full business days before you plan, for example, to dig, drill, plow, pull from, or pound anything into the ground. Be prepared to provide the operator with the correct address, cross street, and a description of your work. You must mark the dig area with white paint. The operator will inform you of the utilities notified of your impending excavation. Wait for all their marks. Be safe and dig with care.
Hey, well, we're back with Jim Adcock from Southside Wellness, And we're just about to talk about what are some of the new and emerging therapies for dealing with chronic pain, and the one that you found, you were referred to. But a little bit of the background is some of the neuroscience behind how these new therapies work.
Yeah, one of the things that neuroscience has shown us, and neuroscience is basically the study of the brain and the nervous system, is that pain is a event that happens 100% in the brain. Our muscles and joints don't necessarily generate pain signals. They send signals up to the brain, and the brain evaluates what's going on within the body. And if it's appropriate, the brain will then send a pain signal down to the injured part of the body to help protect it, things like that.
So it's really a signal that says you've messed up your shoulder, so you should not be lifting things anymore. It's not that the pain isn't from here. The pain is the interpretation from here.
Correct, yeah. And the brain will send pain down in the shoulder. It'll tighten the muscles up to help protect it so you don't injure it further. And that pain signal helps prevent you from, further using it and damaging it. So pain is definitely produced to protect the body. And that's the brain's number one job, is survival, keeping us safe. And if we didn't have a brain, then we couldn't have any pain. And so, the current medical model looks at pain as being, if you have pain, say in your low back, then you have tissue damage, you maybe have arthritis, you have bone spurs, bulging discs, disc degeneration, things like that. But they've done a lot of studies that actually show that's not really the whole story. They've done studies with MRIs and stuff, and they find all these abnormalities with people. And there's a group that have symptoms of pain, and then you have a group that has those same diagnostic findings on an MRI, and they don't have any pain at all. And so I'm even starting to see some articles written by orthopedic doctors that are starting to caution on going with totally what they find on MRI findings and stuff, that MRI findings or things that are abnormal in the body aren't necessarily what's causing the person's pain. And that's what neuroscience is telling us, is that pain is being driven from the brain to protect us, kind of like the smoke alarm in your house. Mm-hmm. Your smoke alarm goes off when there's a fire, but when the fire's put out, the smoke alarm, you wouldn't want your smoke alarm going off every day for 20 years because it would be doing more harm than good. And at some point, that's what the brain's doing. The brain is forgetting that the injury happened a long time ago, and that the brain no longer needs to continue sending out that pain signal. And at some point, it's doing more harm than good. It's like if you talk to somebody who's broken their arm, pain is not normal through the whole healing cycle of an acute problem. A person with a broken arm might have pain for a few days or a week, but then the pain stops while the body still has weeks to go to heal. So it's not normal to have pain throughout the whole healing process, and chronic pain is definitely something that shouldn't be going on in the body. And what neuroscience is telling us is that part of the brain that thinks it needs to always be protecting us is constantly sending that pain signal down through the body. And so that's what we're addressing with Old Pain to Go, is we're addressing that old pain signal that should have turned off a long time ago, but is still being constantly kept alive within the body.
As you were describing that mechanism, what it reminded me of is, I think we've all experienced this, where you walk into the house and you smell something odd, but after a while you don't smell it anymore because your brain says, okay, that obviously didn't mean anything, so we're going to turn that signal off. Yeah. And it's kind of what you're talking about with the chronic pain, is that the brain is continuing to interpret that old signal. Yeah, correct, yeah. So what is this therapy like? What is it?
Being's pain is being controlled by, you could say, your unconscious. So our unconscious is the part of us that tells us when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we're tired. It's that deep intelligence within our body that, if we cut our finger with a knife, it fixes that cut for us without us doing anything. And so being that unconscious part of us still thinks that it needs to send a pain signal through the body to protect us. With Old Pain to Go, what we basically do is talk with the person and talk with their unconscious and show it that it's doing the person more harm than good, and that the pain's no longer needed. And that whole interface between the conscious and the unconscious mind just, once the unconscious realizes that pain's no longer needed, and the person realizes that, it just shuts off those old pain signals.
So it's a strategy for rewiring the brain through a talk therapy that helps do that, or it's a mindfulness. How would you characterize it?
It is a talk therapy, but I want to caution that, being it's a talk therapy, it doesn't mean the pain's in your mind.
Right.
I mean, pain's real. If you have back pain, that's a very real pain. But what I'm saying is the problem is coming from the brain, and that's where, like massage therapy with chronic pain, that's why people aren't getting the results they need, because we're working the tissues, and you need to go further up the nervous system, up into the brain. And so basically we're turning that alarm signal off in the brain, and we're just using a form of talk therapy that's very simple, and it works really well. An example, I recently did a Skype session with a lady who injured her shoulder 30 years ago in a car accident, and for 30 years this was as far as she could raise her arm. And after we did Old Pain to Go, she could completely do this with her arm, because her brain was still thinking it needed to protect her shoulder after all those years of the car accident. And her shoulder had been really resistant to other kinds of therapy. But once we showed her brain that, it was originally trying to help her and protect her, but it no longer needed to do that, it just shut that off.
Well, I know there's a lot of stories of folks who have had some severe injury, but which could not be attended to right away, who have essentially their brain did turn off that pain signal until they got to where they could be helped, and so there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, I had a client last week tell me, he goes, I realize that when I think about my pain, he goes, I can bring it on, and when I don't think about it, he goes, it goes away. It's kind of like, the mind's pretty amazing. Yeah,
I think we've all probably recognized something like that when we get really involved in something. You're really focused, and you can forget all sorts of things for little aches and pains for the time being that you're really involved in whatever the activity is. And
it's like you get distracted from your pain, but it's really you're just not putting your attention on it.
So how do people find you about looking? Is it because they've come to you for massage therapy and you recognize that there's a different problem than what they originally presented with, or how have you connected with people?
Well, after I learned Old Pain to Go, initially it was working with some of my previous clients or people that are coming in for massage therapy. And other than that, it's just when new people call to come in, and when they come in and you do the initial intake with them and find out their history and kind of see what's going on with them. I kind of make the evaluation then whether Old Pain to Go might be something that might be, they might be worth them, pursuing, especially if it's been something that's been resistant to therapy or they've had for a number of years. The interesting thing about Old Pain to Go is it works amazingly well with arthritis. Apparently we can have arthritis, but we don't need the pain every day being sent from the brain to remind us that we have arthritis.
Right, it's not protective or anything, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people who, after an Old Pain to Go session, could completely walk upstairs with absolutely no pain, where before they had to hold on to the hand railing and do one step at a time.
So who was Stephen Blake, who was the therapist who developed this? How did he find this? Do you know something of the history?
About my understanding is Mr. Blake had chronic back pain for 40 years. And he had, about 10 years ago, he had a session, a neuro-linguistic program session from a person. And after that session, his back pain totally went away. So he started studying what in the process allowed him to become pain-free, what worked. And then he studied another few years trying to find out how he could make the process even better and make it more easy and more accessible for other therapists to learn. And so then he started just working with thousands of people using what he calls Old Pain to Go. And interestingly, he also has amazing success with fibromyalgia patients. After working with 500 chronic fatigue fibromyalgia people, he found that there was a common thread that every one of them had. And out of 500 people, only 6, to my understanding, didn't get total resolution. And the few fibromyalgia people I've worked with, they all did really well too. You have to address it a little differently than, say, an old pain signal from an old injury. But fibromyalgia is still the body, just even the brain amplifying that pain signal even more. So we just have a different approach to it.
Okay.
But we're up to, I think there's 15 people in the United States that are certified. Being he's in England, the majority of people so far, there's like 700 people in England and in that whole European area that are certified in it. But I mean, it's totally, since I've been doing it, it's totally changed how I look at pain and how I treat people now. I mean, it can be pretty amazing.
Do you find there's sometimes a combination of the massage therapy and the neuro-linguistic therapy? It's a good combination? It's not just one or the other?
If the problem is basically acute, I'll basically still stick with my body work techniques. If it's chronic, I try not to mix body work therapy with Old Pain to Go, because it might make the person, because part of the process isn't me doing something to them or for them, it's just showing them how they can heal themselves. And so if I kind of start mixing in body work with Old Pain to Go, I think for some people that might kind of get confusing. So initially we just do Old Pain to Go to turn off the chronic pain. And then if they have any other muscle soreness or tightness, or if they just want to come in for some relaxation, then I'll do body work with that.
Okay.
So, but I try to keep them separate.
Okay.
So being they are different.
So you have a website that folks could go to and find some information.
I do, but right now my website's outdated. It's pretty old and kind of had a lot of old information on it. So I'm in the process of getting that all reworked and redone right now. But one thing that I didn't have on the screen here is the Old Pain to Go website, which would have a lot of information for people. And that's just Old Pain with the number 2.
Okay, just like it appears on.
Oh yeah,
That's not the website, but it.
Yeah, oldpaintogo.com. Yeah.
Okay.
And they can get a lot more information on that for right now.
Okay, and you referred to it as neuro-linguistic therapy.
NLP was the technique that originally helped Stephen Blake with his back pain, but this isn't like neuro-linguistic programming at all.
So he's developed from that idea.
Yeah, from that idea he developed it. Yeah, it's Old Pain to Go isn't hypnosis. It isn't anything like that. It's just a way to show the brain how that chronic pain signal is no longer necessary. So.
Well, I think we may have all heard something about muscle memory as a concept. You know, that if you're going to be a good batter, you have to just have swung enough times, or a good golfer, or whatever it is, that your body remembers the pathway. And this sounds really like it's just helping your brain remember the healthy pathway and understand it doesn't have to keep sending that pain signal.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I came up with a good one today. Right. Well, Jim, I want to thank you for coming in and letting us know about this. I know chronic pain management is a huge issue in this country, and it's going to be one of the challenges as we go forward with real healthcare reform is going to be how are we dealing with chronic issues. So I appreciate you coming in and telling us about it, some alternative and emerging therapies.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for letting me come on and share my thoughts and ideas.
All right.
Thanks.
Jim.
All right.
Better Health with Sue Lani Madsen is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Better Health is brought to you in part by Sleep Better Northwest. Ask Sue Lani a question, recommend a guest or topic, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Cheers to better health, and thanks for listening.